Okay, hey, this is Chris Park. This is a modding somewhat video along with just general UI graphical setup. So what I'm going to focus on specifically is some buttons, and I'm just going to go ahead and do some work here at the moment, and that will hopefully illuminate a few things. Now, let's look at what we've got at the moment for a second. In the actual game, we've got this scene here where you can click in, go into the build menu, go into, I'm going to go to, well, doesn't matter. If I go into 1 through 4 here, then these are the things that I can build. Mark 1 fighter, Mark bombers, and so on, Mark 1s, and then it goes up, Mark 2s, and so forth. We've got ourselves some positioning issues there, but it's nothing too drastic. Now, there's a variety of things that one could observe about that. One of which is that this is obviously a copy of these things up here, which Keith has made, and then we're reusing them for a different purpose. Now, what I want to do is actually not reuse them, but instead make kind of a variant offshoot here, because I find this thing down here really hard to follow at all. It's too small, um, and it's not a very convenient. It doesn't look like the rest of the GUI, et cetera, et cetera. And Keith's big thing was wanting it to highlight properly. So I'm gonna go ahead and stop that from running. Now he's got all the code set up to handle doing what it does now and actually function, but let's make it look a little more like what we expect. Now these buttons that we have here are actually quite large. So where I am right now, I'm in the Arkin UI scene, and I've gone into Arkin UI folder, gone into UI examples. This is in the AIW2 modding and GUI folder. Now, when I come in here, if you expand the canvas, you can click on any of the different things in there to see what they are. So right now, I've got the sidebar image button, and this is the prefab that's being used. As usual, I can come over here and hit select on prefab, and it'll show me the original thing. Right now, before I say anything else, I want to go ahead and mention a big thing that has to be done. In the prefab, the position should always be 0 and 0, whereas when you're actually messing with it out in here, it will be probably something else so that you can see it along with all these things. That's okay, but every time you hit apply, you've got to then come back in here and 0 it out in the prefab again. Now, let's figure out a better way of using this space. Now, I'm not sure how much in love anybody's going to be with exactly what I do here, but let's give it a go. We need something that's a little more horizontally oriented. These things right now with the sidebar image buttons, those are meant to be very, well, square, so they can be kind of gridded up nicely. But in our actual aspect ratio, even if you're on a 4:3 monitor, that's a little bit more wide than it is tall. And as you kind of saw before, vertical space is at a premium, and so we don't want to waste that because things get really, really tiny. Now, granted, I'm doing an extreme example of this with the screen that I happened to be testing it on before was 966 by 537. So I mean that was very small. All right, let's get down to it. So first of all, I'm going to select the sidebar image button, hit Control D. I'm just going to drag this over somewhere else so I can see it. All these little lines here show the order in which things get selected if you were using a keyboard. It's just a Unity thing, so it's something you have to worry about. Now, we've got sidebar image button 1 here. what I'm going to do is say, let's say build image button instead. And I'm going to drag that down here and it's going to make a prefab. Now I've already said that this needs to be zeroed out here. If I do that, then hooray, and this isn't changed. I'm going to have to do that again after hit apply later, but I figured I'd go ahead and just show it now. Now we've got a bunch of stuff in here that I don't care about. Namely, we've got cloaked, reloading, shielded, under fire, all this stuff. It'll break the prefab instance. Yep, I know. And then we've got these other things going on here. So let's see here. What should we do? The first thing that I want to do is I want these buttons to look more like the rest of the GUI, because that's what this is really. This is a GUI button. And so with the highlighting and all that jazz, I want to pull from that concept. So we've got this button image here, which is being used for the background of the other. And so let's use that here as well. All right. Now we've got ourselves a button script here. Now this thing, I can take off visualize, by the way, and then that stops showing up. Transition, sprite swap. Now I can take these other different things here. So if we actually set the highlighted state and whatnot on these, then it will adjust what it looks like. So if the button is highlighted, it look like that. If it's disabled, look like that. If it's pressed, look like that. I think that's right. Nope, not this thing. Let's see here. We've got ourselves button blue. Yeah, pressed is semi-highlight. Yep. Okay, cool. So we're good. Now, so at this point, we already have something that looks, to my eye, a little bit better. And it will react to hovering and clicking and all that jazz. So now, let's take this further. And let's make this a little bit wider than it is tall. Now, these are relative sizes. So it's 50 by 50. That doesn't really mean anything. Depending on how it's used in the game, it'll be any number of different sizes, to be frank. So it's all relative. Let's take this and make it 50% wider. So let's say this is 75 wide by 50 high. And all right, I'm feeling good about that. Let's take the mark level. Well, let's do a few things. First of all, with this icon border here, this is set to stretch in here, and its left and its top and all that have certain sizes set on them. So what I want to do is I want to make it so that this thing actually fills more of the space. So I want it to fill the absolute entire thing, or something closer to it. If you start wondering about quality loss, with that being scaled up, it's actually, again, this is all relative. It'll show up crystal clear on the screen later. All right, so we're making progress here. Now, the next thing that I want to do is the mark level is really hard to see when it's down there and small. And this is a pretty important thing. So what about if we put it up here in the corner, and if we make that bigger and move that down? Again, this will show up clearly later because we're going to be viewing it at a much, much smaller size along those lines there. Now, I want more horizontal space. I'm not happy with this. So let's say 90-ish. And then I no longer want this thing to be exactly centered. I'm going to take this over a little bit. And then the mark level, I'm going to move over here a little bit more. And then for the flare, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to rotate this. I have no idea which axis this is. Whoops, definitely not that one. Nope. Third one's the charm. All right, so I've rotated this, and this is going to be viewed sideways now, and I'm moving this up here. Now, why am I doing that? I'm doing this so that, yes, this is inconsistent with the way that things are viewed in the game, but this is going to be the first element that people see, and since there's a lot of repeat of the icons, this should, in theory, show pretty clearly what it is people want to see. So I'm going to shrink this down some here. And this also helps to make this a more horizontal view overall. Shrink this down a little bit here too. I think, what can I do here? Oh, whoops. No, 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 no. I was moving the ship icon, but then it's, okay. Undo, undo. All right. So now when we come out, we've got this thing instead. And, you know, if we felt like it, we could do something like have a little bit of text that shows up down in there sometimes. Like we could make this even wider and have like the text name of it show up really small there or something. You know, this is just kind of a basic prototype, and anybody can come in and modify this if they want to. So, all right, I'm hitting apply. Now, there's another thing that I need to do here. First of all, we've got these sub images here, and it is missing a bunch of them. It's not really a problem because in the code, we're referencing the sub images by index, and we've got that coded in, so we're just going to be ignoring those anyway. However, I'd prefer to be a little cleanly about it, and so let's just let's reset these, and we'll have different indexes on these. So we'll say icon border, and then drag it again, icon border, ship icon there, and then ship icon there, flare here, and then flare here, and then mark level here, and mark level here. So now we're down to, should be 4 elements. Okay, so hooray. Now, with the selection in general, I'm not even sure if the other buttons are correctly noting when they are selected, which would be an interesting thing to look at in the code if that's not the case. This is good enough for a first kind of dry run of the new organization of all this. I'm going to go ahead and hit apply one more time. And one thing I do want to note is that the ship icon itself, this thing, is a child of icon border. And so if you disable icon border, it's going to also disable ship icon. Never going to want to do that because we're going to want to turn off we might want to turn off just the border and not the actual icon itself. That's a matter for debate. Actually, what I think I want to do is this. Let's do this. Let's take the ship icon out. Come to think of it, I'm going to make a copy of this just in case. Build icon image button. Build icon image button. Borderless. If somebody hates this, then they can come back to my build image button and use that instead. Build image button 00. All right, so we've got our borderless one here. I'm gonna not be cleanly this time because I want the indices to match on them. So I'm gonna wind up with a blank one on this probably. Maybe. I don't know. I have to think about it. All right. So now I can scale this up even more. One of the things that I want to do is king. I think it's just king. Yeah. All right. So I'm going to use the white versions instead of using yellow or blue or whatever. And so see how that goes. You'll notice that last time it was the blue version. And I found that a little distracting, showing one colored version versus another. I think just showing white might help with the visual clutter. That way the flare and the number are the things that have color. And then of course what's selected. All right, so now we're missing the image here, and it rather than it being, complaining and saying missing, I'm just going to say none. This way the indices are the same between either one of these, and we can go back and forth between the borderless and the bordered one. Incidentally, the relative position, scale, all that sort of stuff has no bearing on code. So if I wanted to adjust this at any time, then all I would have to do is come in here, adjust the prefab, run the game, not have to touch any code. So if I'm making slight visual tweaks, then that's what I would do. All right. Now, image button, or build image button rather, 00. And these need to be in the Arc and UI project. Now, if you're modding, then you're not going to want to put that in Arc and UI. You're going to want to put that in your own personal modding one. Hit save all assets this way to make sure that it's actually been committed. And then in this particular case, I'm going to go ahead and hit build all asset bundles. So it will be hanging around. But first of all, I'm going to have this text, which I'm going to hang on to build image button borderless, because it's not going to let me mess in this for a little while. All right, so we've got ourselves a sidebar image. All right, so I haven't gone through this particular code much previously, so I'm gonna find out a few things about this the first time myself. So, nuts. Let's see. For these, I think I just scaled them all down, so this should be correct. 0, 1, 2, 3. Alrighty. Sub images. What are sub images here? This is for the controller, right? Okay. Yeah, I wrote that code originally. And I've completely forgotten about it. Oh yeah. So it goes. All right, I don't care about any of this. So just get rid of that. Sprite backgrounds. Okay, so the main image is putting in the sprite backgrounds one. I don't know what that is. Just be positive. Outline, decal, border, and then a number. Right, I set that up so there would be, should be 18. What? I don't remember this at all. Such is life. I don't think I want to change the main image at all because the main image is now the background. And so I'm going to, for now, just comment that out. And so everything is based on the actual thing here. So, and then we'll say icon white instead. And this index icon border, if I'm using the current one, the borderless one, that's actually going to error out because this is going to be null. And so I'm going to not assign to that. So we're assigning to the index icon flare, which is going to be sideways, and then the mark level down there. And okay, happy with all that. All of Keith's clicking and all that sort of stuff is fine, of course. This stuff here is apparently what I'm supposed to replace, which yeah, I'm not real sure I follow on that, what that is, but all right. What we want to do in there is say, yeah, it's selected, or no, it's not selected on the button. And that's something that we would do in other parts of the build menu too. Okay, so you can see over here where the changes were I made. So I've got my nice little thing here. All right, so now what I want to do is sidebar, see, sidebar image button. I'll let you see what I'm doing here. Sidebar image button. All right, so I've got these prefabs. Now, you're not going to be able to search through this project and find it normally. It's under UI prefab. So if you look under the games install location, game data, configuration, UI prefab, and then you can define your own UI prefabs, which come from whatever bundle you want. Don't edit my file if you're making a mod. Make your own file with your own prefix on there, make your own asset bundle, and then any changes that we make won't bother your file. And that way, further versions of the game won't destroy your stuff. And then, of course, for Keith, he's editing this file. It's got my initials instead of his, mainly because this is primarily my one, but it doesn't make much difference. All right, so specialize that, and then Control U makes it lowercase. Sidebar image button. This prefab name can be anything. That's just how the code finds it later. So sidebar image button. Why am I not coming back with any results on that? There must be that's weird. All right, so anyway, the prefabs come from in here. Now what I want is build type. So this is in Keith's UI Windows one, which either you can edit or make your own copy. So this is game data configuration UI window, and then Keith's initials with UI Windows. And I search for the one that corresponds to window in game build type icon menu. Try saying that 5 times fast. And here we are. So then it's got a prefab lookup. Aha. So this is using the button set blue smaller center. Oh, build type icon menu. Wait, icon menu. There we go. Image button set, sidebar icons. So we've got that. Yep, yep, yep. This is a handy little thing here. Image button set. Image button set, build image buttons. Sure, fine. So we've got ourselves, and what the heck is this? This is an image button set, which references something else. So these things are not being directly referenced at all, which is why it didn't come up elsewhere in the code. And I'd forgotten about that. So what we've got here is we've got image drawer specialized image button set here. And so we've got image button set sidebar icons. What I'm going to do is just make a copy of that, Control D again. Image button, what do I call this thing? Image button set blah blah. Just copy paste. All right. Now, this thing doesn't have any children, which you can tell because it doesn't have this thing, the little expandable bit. And so, you can edit everything for sure. With the ones that have children, you want to be careful about that because they may have children in their children. And so you're going to want to drag that in here and edit it and then bring it back out. But the ones that are flat, easy enough. All right, so we've got ourselves, this is the build image buttons one. This is the sidebar icons one. You can see it at the top and at the bottom, and up top right, and then down here at the bottom. So relevant rect is itself, sure. Non-sim name, this is just for purposes of being able to find it in the code when something goes wrong. And then reference child image, yeah, sidebar image button. Now it's referencing this other prefab. That's not the prefab we want to use. Now in this particular case, I want to use the borderless one, so I'm going to go ahead and drag this in here. I'm not going to bother making a borderless and a bordered version of this because what I can do is just have this one that's image button set, build image buttons, and I can drag whichever prefab I want into the reference child image, and then I don't have to go edit any XML or edit any code, and it will just automatically update. You'll notice that since I did Control D to duplicate in the project view, in that hierarchy view, it kept what asset bundle this was already in. This one was in that asset bundle, so now this one is. So I'm going to do arkin, save all assets. That updates the internal Unity database. And we'll do build all asset bundles again. All right, so now we've got this thing, which I've already named that way. I copied it the other direction, so I know that's the name. Make that lowercase there. And hooray. So now we've got this thing instead. So now we can search for this and we say, okay, here we go. We've got a couple of places that reference this. One of them is the outline sidebar. Yep, that's good. Should be using that other one. And we've got the build icon menu here. Don't want to use that anymore. So, all right. The width of these items is 60 and 20, I guess, right now. I don't remember what those things do. We'd have to play with those numbers to see about it. It has to do with the relative sizing, but I don't much care at the moment. All right, so this is automatically reading in these things, so this should just work. I'll hit Control-Shift-B to do a quick build, and this thing is finished building, so now I can click over to the player, clear everything here so we can see. Now, this isn't going to do the little quick thing that I originally set out to do, which is make it actually respond to highlighting, because nobody's telling it it's highlighted. That's a problem not just with let's see, this shows when, oh, it does. All right, these say when they're highlighted. What do you know? All right, so let's see if that just, ah, boy. All right, right draw instructions, la. Null image, sidebar button image 20, sub image 0. Sub image 0, what is sub image 0? Ah, yes. All right. It wants me to be tidy. Sub image 0 is, I really don't see myself using them with the border, because that makes the thing smaller. So we're going to not do that. The main reason for the border, aside from showing the state of things, is to have lots of contrast. And since we're using the white one anyway, we're going to have plenty of contrast. So image 0 is, of course, the fact that we don't have a button border there. We'll do ship icon, and we'll do flare, mark level, and it says 3 sub images. Hit apply. Come back in here now, and the borderless one here, set this back to position 0, 0. Come out of here, save all assets, save the scene, build all asset bundles. Now, I'm going to come back over here to this particular code. Looks like I'm pretty committed to not having the button at this point, the border. So I'm going to go ahead and just do that. If anybody wanted to add that back, it's easy peasy anyway. All right, compile. Oops, wrong scene, wrong window. It's like, what? All right, load. Boom, boom, boom. All right, so these are showing up as being very square still for some reason. And of course, that's distorting these like crazy, but that means that they are actually showing up properly, though. Which one is highlighted is showing up correctly already, so that's easy enough. I don't have to actually we're done on that. The code was already working to make the button part highlight fine. So what I can do is, just since I'm not sure if Keith is going to need something else from this, I'm going to go ahead and just comment that out. But at any rate, now, why is this showing both too low and too narrow? That's a good question. So let's see what's up with that. Want my aspect ratio from the other to be honored, and it's not. So what do we got here? All right, so it's gonna, if we've changed menus or something else has changed, then it's coming in here. If there's no build menu items, then it's doing this. Okay, row and column width. It's trying to make the height 32, the row 32. All right, I don't like that. And of course, this is in relatives terms. I think that those are a little on the short side to begin with. So let's come in here. I've set these up to be 90 by 50 relative. And so in here, this is just doing 32 by 32. So it doesn't really matter, but 90 by 50, say 50 divided by 90 is 55%. So let's change the row height to be 40. And so it actually should be 90 divided by 50 is 1.8, yeah, times 40, 72. So 72 pixels. If you didn't follow that math, sorry. It should be pretty straightforward. This icon height thing, the row height times 0.9. Wonder if that's why we're getting this overlay. The overlap. Let's try doing times 0.8. Be curious to see what that does. All right, let's see what happens. Not in there. Load. Clickety. Build 1 through 4. Hey, look at that. All right. Yeah, those are now showing up with the, at least that looks like the proper aspect ratio. And I can actually see what the heck is going on in there. I'm not thrilled about how the flare is looking. That's actually worse than if I had it going across the bottom, because the flare is vertically is oriented horizontally naturally. So all right, that was a stupid idea. Click into here, flare, boom, and then we're gonna put this thing relatively centered here, there, and we'll make it much bigger. I wish that I could do that in a way that wasn't making me have to make this smaller, but oh well. All right, pretty happy about this. And then the borderless bit down here, just delete, save all assets. Oh, apparently I hit build, meant hit save. If you're just testing on Windows, of course, you can just hit build Windows Asset Bundle. I was only hitting build all because I wasn't in any particular hurry. And I'm going to do a push to players pretty soon. And so I need them all built for players to use them. So, all right. I know there's still going to be a graphical error. There's one that I definitely didn't fix. And but I just wanted to show you the difference here in just making these changes and no others, so that you would have an idea of what's going on. Now, this is these are just, this is not correct in general. There's basically anything that doesn't have an image set is using that default image. Nice. I'm just now noticing that error. All right, deal with that in a second. Now this 0.8 and 0.8 here, this is really throwing me off. I don't know what that is exactly. But I'm pretty sure that's the cause of the offsetting. What I'm going to go ahead and do real quick while we're at this is update wrapped image with update with flare. Okay, so this is in all right. So what I'm going to do now is, this is actually in a different project that I don't have open right now. This is not a moddable bit, sorry, but I'm going to go ahead and fix a bug that is in a non-moddable bit. So I'm searching for this array. Let's get in there. All right. So I'm saying update with, and then next sprite is that. And I think we've got if next sprite is null, so let's do this. This is annoying. So let's say bool set show hide status based on null. So if that, then is equal to, use a ternary operator here. If sprite is equal to null, then we're going to say hide. If it's not null, we're going to say show. And don't need those. All right. So we're going to use that new overload now. Not in there. In not that. In here. And so we're going to look at all the cases of update with. It's not that many. There's no question that we're not going to want to use that at this point. So we're going to say true, because we've got our new overload here of set show height status based on null. True, true. True. Boy, this was kind of messing up things in a variety of places. All right. Count. True, true, true. Yep. True, true. I didn't want to put that in there without, I didn't want to just update the original method to magically do that. because then there would be other cases where it would potentially be doing something that somebody didn't expect. They'd be like, why is this hiding? And then it might not come back because if they didn't set the show status to be show later when they assign something, then it wouldn't appear again. And so that sort of invisible behind the scenes change in state would have been ugly in this particular case. Changing it so there's an extra overload for that method makes it so that yes, you can still shoot yourself in the foot, but at least you should know you did it, or you have the means for figuring that out at least. All right. So that's good. At this point, these things are showing properly, and so are these. We had a bunch of little flares all over the place where we shouldn't have previously. Now the offsetting here is incorrect, and that's interesting. I'm not sure why these things are offset down. Oopsies. See, that's weird. Offset down by a very specific amount, it feels like. See, it exactly lines up with the bottom of these things. To be honest, I think this is probably going to be outside of the scope of my changes because from the look of things, this is based on, oh, I see what's happening. Okay, yeah. So the spacing here, all right. This is, setting how much spacing there is between items in the rows, and I don't want quite that much spacing between items in the rows. The actual positions of these things is I'm not sure what that was. Something just freaked out. Hopefully not my recording software. All right, so I'm gonna have a little bit lower sizing here. And so this is the whole menu is offset incorrectly. So let's take what was this? Let's take this back down to say 32 at this point. Let's see how that looks. So 32, and what was our ratio? I don't remember. All right, so 90 divided by 50 times 32, 57.6. Fine, we'll say 58. I mean, I can say 57.6, but why not? 57.6, add an F so it's a float, not a double. All right. So we'll now see a little bit less egregious spacing between these things. But they're still going to overlap the below menu when they shouldn't. And see, they're overlapping this, and they should not be. And they're inset now a little bit, but that's because of the spacing, not because of anything else. And then the orientation of the tooltip is overlapping these two, which it shouldn't be. So I don't know why that is, but I'm not going to mess with it. Turrets here, now you can see they all have the same icon, but then they have different flares across there. That's pretty good. These flares are a little on the small side, though. One of the things that I want to bear in mind is I intentionally look at this a lot of the time on a really small screen because I'm running a 4K monitor here, but I use a very small area of the screen. Even this whole recording is a tiny portion of my screen. And I do that so that if I can read it when it's that small, then I'll have no problems when it's been scaled up. One of the biggest problems with the first AI War was people had trouble reading the GUI, and I was working at 1024 by 768, I think, at the time, as kind of my default, and basing everything around that. Lots of nastiness in terms of how things would turn out, but let us do this. I am going to take the flare here. We're gonna make this bigger. Don't make it just bigger in one dimension. That will make for a really bad time. And then the ship icon. Gosh, this is gonna look weird if there's no flare and the ship icon is off-centered. So I guess this is just how it's gonna be. I could make a non-flare and flare version, but I don't think that's the best idea. The other thing that I could do is make a couple of images that turn on or off based on what's in use. That could work well. That could work really well. All right, let's do this. I'll be fancy. Build image button. I'm just not going to use that thing anymore. All right, ship icon centered. And we're going to have another one now, which I'm going to call ship icon with flare. Now, I'm going to turn off some of these. All right, so turn off that, turn off that. Now I'm going to take the one that's with flare, and I'm going to move this up here and shrink it a little bit. All right, so now the flare is extra big and it's not overlapping the ship here too much. So assuming that we've got flare, that's what it'll look like. I'm going to turn off this and turn off flare, and then the centered one here. I'm going to make this a bit bigger, quite a bit bigger. Doesn't have any flare at all, then this is what it's going to look like now. And yes, I know it extends a little bit out on the top and the bottom. I think it looks fancy. All right, so now I've got 4 things to show here again, and I should make sure and turn all these things on. It's going to look like a circus. That's fine. All right, now we've got ship icon centered, flare, mark level, and then it copied mark level when I made the thing 4. So ship icon with flare, drag that over twice. It's going to be index 3. And then down in here, 0 out the position, save my scene, save all assets. I'm just going to go ahead and have it build everything. Going to be busy while it's doing that. All right, now we're being fancy. So index, icon, centered. In fact, I'm going to say, to be clear, no flare. And so flare only, oh no, is index 3. All right. So now, so if this is null, then null, and I'm gonna pretend that that's correct. It's not. You know what? I've got my screen set really small right now, so I'm gonna just leave it all in one line. All right, so we got flare only. So, all right, so if we're showing the flare, so if the flare is null, then don't show this one. If the flare is not null, shoot, sorry. There we go. All done. It's late in the day. I'm tired. Give me a break. All right. Bum, ba-bum, ba-bum. All right. So, dang it, I did it backwards. All right. That was seeming pretty good though. But I did it backwards. Told you, it's late in the day. Give me a break. So I fixed that. I did those things inverted. This should work perfectly fine now. Now granted, it's still overlapping in an awful fashion on the stuff below it. And that's not going to be playable. All right. Nice and big and easy to see for the things that don't have flare, hooray. And then for things like the turrets, which do have flare, we can see the icon nice and clear, and the flare is really nice and clear. So, and we can see the mark level really clear. I would call that a win all the way around. Build infra. So, I mean, I guess this is technically playable now. Space dock. Ah, oh, shoot. With some of these, because of the way the flare is, with off-centering it, it makes it look really funky. Ugh. Like, look at that one there. All right. So, another minor visual quibble. All right, so we're going to center this thing again. Position X is what? Probably 0. Nope. There we go. All right, hit apply. Click down here. 0. Ah, oh my. What am I doing? All right. All seems happy. Save. Build all assets. That should look okay when I go into that other screen. But what is up with this screen here? This thing orienting is not great. Height is 3. Before related. Icon menu. All right, so the height of this thing is being set inside the menu. That makes sense. And it's the height that's being messed up here. So we're trying to find out what is our height. We're trying to say what is our height. Hmm. So it's because of the orientation thing that Badger had requested. Um, this thing is going out of bounds on where it's drawing stuff. It's not drawing them in an orderly fashion. Um, it's trying to draw from the bottom up. That's a pain. What really needs to be done, I mean, clearly this is working fine. Then what we need to do is loop through. I don't like this at all. This is a little weird. All right, so we're gonna go to our image button set here. Hmm. We've got ourselves some height things that are offsetting. Keith has been in this more recently than me, so I probably shouldn't waste time on this video going through that. But at any rate, it's counting upwards with negative height, and so all that stuff after that's been done, that logic's fine, whatever. It then needs to be slid down uh, so that everything is positioned correctly. However, even when it hasn't been pushed up, it's still not being positioned exactly right. So, not sure quite what the deal is with that. All right, so that looks good. I mean, this looks good. It's centered in a lot of ways. That's better anyway. And then, of course, when we're here, this doesn't look so nuts. Now, I can see that these things aren't centered in general now. Ah, boy. So correct that. Just center yourself. Fine. Fine, fine, fine. And then the flare. Um, yeah, okay, fine. Fine, fine, fine. All right. So happy, happy, and happy. This is a little bit teensy bit strange, but small price to pay, I guess. I don't know. Arc build defense. Yeah, I mean, you can see that stuff pretty well. Nice. Whoa. In sim planning context there. In-game build type menu. Get text to show. Well, that's not mine, so pass that over to Keith. Alrighty. Thanks for watching, and hopefully this creates a better understanding of how to go in and change around images the way that you want. If you're wanting to do images that are in line with text, that's a whole other matter. But if you're looking to do images in buttons or all that sort of thing, you can set up that stuff pretty well. The aligning of one element to another on the screen, honestly, when we're not talking within controls, I have no idea how that works. Keith created that, and it's been recently revamped, and I haven't gone into that code, as you can probably tell by the fact that I'm sitting here staring at my screen going, hey, where's that stuff? So maybe he'll do a video on that at some point, shows how to get kind of groups of stuff sitting in the screen properly. And by a group of stuff, I mean, from a spec standpoint, what I'd requested was basically I want to have like this piece of a menu that I can say, you know, this goes in the upper left, and then this goes below the thing that was in the upper left. This other one goes in below that thing, and then this thing goes to the right of that thing. You know, so it's all relative to itself. And within those kind of auto-sizing sections, you could call them windows if you wanted to be kind of OS-y about it, I guess. But anyway, within those things, positioning is a lot more straightforward. But in terms of how those things get positioned, I don't actually know at the moment, because that was recently revamped. So Keith will have to fix that one bit up. But otherwise, we're looking good at the moment. So thanks for watching.